Good afternoon. Welcome to the third and final installment in our high school ELA instructional materials adoption open house series. My name is Kristen Oliver. I am from the secondary curriculum and instruction department, one of our coordinators on that team. And I have the distinct honor of primarily supporting our English language arts 6th through 12th grade teachers. And I will be your presenter today, your facilitator, and thank you for joining us. If you have questions as we go, please pop those into the chat box on the to the right of your YouTube video, and I will field those questions at the end of the presentation. Please keep them relevant on today's topic of instructional materials for 9th through 12th grade English, because you have the best chance of getting them answered. I know that there are many thoughts and questions and wonderings on our minds these days as our secondary schools start to enter hybrid learning. And I believe there's an email address for you to send those questions to in the chat. Again, thank you for being here this very busy Wednesday, very busy week and month for our secondary students and teachers and parents and community members. I am grateful you're here taking some time to learn about instructional materials and our adoption process for 9th through 12th grade. I would love for you to access the slides, whether you're joining live or you're watching this recording later. You are welcome to enter this web address into the URL of your browser tab. It is to take you to the slides, bit.ly/all caps ELA lowercase adopt, and just type it exactly as it's written there into the URL address in a new browser tab, and that will open up a view-only copy of the slides for you. You'll see that some of the slides are hidden. Those are, you can still click on them and view them. Those are from the last 2 sessions. So this one slide deck is for all 3 segments in our instructional materials open house series. As well, I would love to know who's joining me. Again, whether you're joining right now live or whether you're watching this recording later, please take a few moments to sign in on a Google form and let me know who you are out there watching this and being part of our instructional materials adoption process. So same thing, it's a bit.ly address. Type that exactly into your URL address in a browser tab, bit.ly/capsmp lowercase open. Both web addresses there are case sensitive. Let's dive in. So before we get started, just a reminder, this is actually the 3rd part of a 3-part series. And we are going to spotlight My Perspectives, the 3rd program that we are considering. If you'd like to check out the February 10th and 17th recordings, I have links in the slide. They're also right there on the YouTube channel as well if you scroll for prior videos. And you can see a spotlight on Springboard as well as into literature. The first recording, February 10th, I go into more detail about the adoption process itself. There's a whole set of introductory slides. I'm not going to cover that again here, just a couple of the highlights. If you'd like more in-depth information and you missed the February 10th session, I encourage you to watch even just the beginning. It gives you a better picture of the adoption process and what our team has been up to in terms of reviewing these instructional materials. So a reminder for those of you who have been part of the whole series and just to kind of ground us in our last session here, what the role of the instructional materials adoption team is. The team is comprised of representatives from both of the comprehensive high schools as well as Independence High School. And 9th through 12th grade, we've got special education representation, English language learner representation, and then instructional leader representation. So we have a wealth of knowledge and expertise that we are leaning into heavily to make this super important decision about which materials we will use for our core English language arts classes in 9th through 12th grades for the next 6 years. It is a 6-year adoption process. So right now we're in the 6th and final year of using Springboard materials. And then we are adopting this year to begin using the materials in the fall of 2021. So a quick piece of the timeline, it's spring 2021. definitely, I can tell it's spring because of the winds we've had recently. But right now we are getting community engagement and feedback and welcoming you into our process, and appreciative of additional feedback as a team to get more insight into which materials will be the very best fit for our students and their learning of the Common Core state standards for ELA. We are looking to make a recommendation to the school board at the first April meeting. So that's our timeline. We're coming up on making a final decision. As I mentioned before, our 3 finalists in alphabetical order: into literature, my perspectives, and springboard. I do encourage you to check out the overview videos, the info sessions for into literature and springboard if you missed those on February 10th and 17th. And I am happy to visit with you about our 3rd finalist today. I will be highlighting information about my perspectives, which is published by Savvis, formerly known as Pearson. My perspectives is what our middle school students use for their ELA classes. That is the 5th year of adoption for middle school. So some of you community members, parents, teachers, you might be familiar with this program through experience of our middle schoolers. Just a reminder for those of you who are joining for the first time today about my role in the adoption process as a curriculum and instruction coordinator. I am a facilitator of the adoption process. I help to guide the team in terms of gaining the information they need to make the decision as a team. I am impartial, unbiased. I am not a voting member of the team. So today in this presentation, I will be passing along to you the highlights and key points as presented by the publisher last Friday. The date is escaping me, but last Friday to our adoption team. So Savvis, a team of 3 folks from Savvis, presented to our adoption team last Friday. I have curated the most salient points for you, and I'm going to present that today, again, as emphasized by the Savvis team. If you are just now popping in, please do be sure to pull up the slides, bit.ly/all caps ELA adopt. Adopt is lowercase, and please do sign in that bit.ly/all caps MP lowercase open so I can touch base with those of you who are joining. All right. The program components. So as I presented for the last 2 programs, I'm going to share with you what's coming with the materials. For my perspective specifically, there's a hardcover teacher edition per teacher, and then consumable student editions. So similar to what students have experienced with Springboard the last several years, however many years they've been using it in their own high school experience. They get their own book, and then each year they get a new book, and that's paperback. There is the digital platform, Savvis Realize. Our high school math students are using that for the first time with their Envision materials this year. So again, if you're a high school parent, teacher, student, you might be familiar with the term Realize from the students' experience in their core math classes. There's a Google for Education partnership that I'll touch on later on. The program also has partnerships with Turnitin Revision Assistant and SimCheck, as well as Kelly Gallagher's Hook and Inspire, which was featured during the publisher's presentation to our team. The publisher also emphasized their authorship team during the presentation last Friday, and that they're very proud of the 4 primary authors of the materials and their strong background in research. And so you, as you review the materials on your own, you'll see insight and kind of commentary from these 4 authors: Ernest Morrell, Jim Cummins, Freddie Hebert, and Kelly Gallagher. All right, a unit overview of my perspectives. As you are reviewing the materials, you'll notice the same unit structure across grade levels, across units. So whether it's a 12th grade Unit 3 or 9th grade Unit 2, the organization and structure of the units will be the same and predictable and consistent. There are 6 units per high school book. So 6 units in 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, and 12th grade. Each unit is designed around an essential question that is tied in during the final assessment. I'll come back to that in just a moment. The units are structured within each unit. The structure is the same. It begins with whole class learning around 1 or 2, sometimes 3 anchor texts of various genres. Small group learning is next, and that's typically, so whole class learning in terms of pacing is typically just a little bit, maybe half of the unit, maybe a bit more. Small group learning is next, in which case the instruction shifts to really the students working collaboratively together for the bulk of that unit. That's the intentional design, at least, behind it. And then the units end with an independent learning section wherein students get to choose from a collection of texts what they want to read. So that's the student choice feature within my perspectives units. So it's really the intention behind this organization is the gradual release of responsibility. So it's primarily whole group learning, then primarily small group, then primarily independent. That doesn't mean that there won't be some independent opportunities for application in whole group or small group. It's just where the bulk of the learning experience is going to be centered. The unit design is also backward designed around the performance-based assessment, which is a writing task and a speaking and listening task at the end of each unit. It's based on the essential question. So it's the essential question kind of tweaked, make it a little bit more specific, and that's the writing prompt for the performance-based assessment. I want to point out the color coding. That was something that the publishers, when the publishing team presented, that there is color coding that's consistent as well. So you'll see these the orange box for performance-based assessment. You'll notice some orange color coding. I'm sorry, my slide deck is kind of popping up and covering that up, but there's orange writing for the performance task at the end of whole group learning. I'll move my cursor so you can see that. So orange color coding for performance task at the end of the whole class learning and at the end of small group learning. Those performance tasks are meant to be kind of a place where teachers pause and help prepare students for the performance-based assessment. So let's say in this case, the performance-based assessment is an explanatory essay. That performance task at the end of whole class learning will be practice and direct instruction on how to write an explanatory essay. The performance task at the end of small group learning will mirror the speaking and listening focus that's in the performance-based assessment. So it's about the kind of that teaching of the writing that shows up in those places of the unit. The units are designed to have a variety and balance of fiction, nonfiction, classic, contemporary, varied authors. So you'll see, even though we're focusing on explanatory writing in this unit, that there are short stories, there's poetry, there's let's see, an informational and infographic. So there's a wide collection of text that are helping to tie and relate to that essential question. And that's an intentional design of the unit as you're reviewing. All right. So the next piece here that I want to go into before I showcase some of these features in the materials you have access to review online, I'll touch on the scaffolds and supports. Those of you who have tuned in for the last two know that supports for special populations is the #1 priority of our adoption team, as decided by the team. So what does my perspectives offer in terms of that? And I'm just highlighting, again, some of the key pieces that the publishers highlighted for our adoption team. This is not all-inclusive by any means. So first, in the teacher edition, teachers, as you're reviewing those materials, there are resources for each selection around and reteach and practice guidance for directs you to online resources that can support additional learning and scaffolding within those main selections that are printed in the book. The decide and plan portion of your teacher planning pages gives you more guidance on English language support, strategic support for different levels of learners, especially students who are struggling. There's a challenge section to extend and enrich for students who need that additional kind of engagement, who are performing well on grade level standards. And then there's additional standard support. So it's catching up, on track, and then kind of pushing ahead, looking ahead. So that's all, again, within the teacher edition on those planning pages. And then there's also personalized for learning. That's what the name of the box is, and that's in the teacher wrap, the teacher notes along kind of the border of your print teacher edition. And I'll show you where that is in the online version as well. In terms of EL support for English learners and instruction there, the team boasted the selection and summary audio. There are summaries of the selections that also have audio available. A multilingual glossary, assignable language practice. So there are additional tasks and kind of workshops that support that. English learner support lessons and tutorials, and that's all, again, kind of supplemental in that online piece. And then Jim Cummins, he's that expert. When I noted the authors at the beginning, he's that EL expert. Some Jim Cummins strategies in the teacher wrap. So go back up to that first bullet where it says personalized for learning boxes. You'll see personalized for learning with specific types of support. So vocabulary, or in this case, English learner support, scaffolding support, etc. One of the other supports for students, in my perspectives, is predictable routines that are consistent across units within a grade level and across grade levels. So one of the some of those key routines would be goals. Students set the goals and reflect on goals in each unit. There's a first read routine, first read guide routine that's built into the materials. Building literacy skills. So at the end of reading a text and the first read of a text, students engage in 3 levels of literacy activities to build and make meaning. One is making meaning, written expression, and then vocabulary support. So those 3, and I'll show that again when we get into the digital platform in your review tools. There's 3 predictable kind of types of exercises at the end of each selection. There's also an evidence log that students use to collect evidence in preparation for their performance-based assessment. In the student book, there's a toolkit in the back with models of annotated text and a completed first read guide. So an additional support for students to see, in addition to a teacher model, what's an additional model of what that looks like. And then the program does offer level text. They called it the bridge to complex text. So the level text are used in conjunction with the grade level complex text as a way for students to kind of reach that complex text. All right, platform highlights as shared by the publisher. So one of the pieces that they presented is that all of the PDFs, so there are kind of there's a realized reader, which is an interactive reader for the selections, but there are also supplemental PDFs. Those PDFs are interactive without additional software, and that's currently just in the high school program. I believe that's coming to middle school this fall in 2021. So teachers and students, you might have used programs like Kami, for instance, or even just Adobe Reader. So these PDFs don't need that type of software when accessed through the platform, the Realize platform. My Perspectives does have a partnership with Turnitin Revision Assistant. So essays can be submitted through the platform, and then there is revision guidance and feedback, and also proofreading available through that. That's on select prompts, and not necessarily, for instance, a performance-based assessment is not available through that feature because the company said it's an assessment, so that cannot be submitted. For point of clarification. There's also SimCheck, which checks against a database of for plagiarism. So students submit an essay, it kind of does a plagiarism check, and then gives a report, a similarity report to teachers and students. The writing rubrics for essays submitted through the platform are clickable, so that feedback can be delivered right through the platform without kind of a separate rubric, whether written in or off to the side, that's given back to students for feedback. There are selections, so each reading selection in the print book has an assessment paired with it. There are unit assessments and beginning, middle, and end of year assessments. Those are both in print and digital formats, and I will show you that when we do a walkthrough of the platform. The data that's available for teachers is can be broken down at the student level. You can see class views of data. You can look at standards and which standards students performed well on, which standards they need more support on. There are mastery reports, item analysis reports. So there are a lot of different data views and ways that you can kind of, as a teacher, see where students are based on what they've completed in the platform, whether that's an essay or whether that's a multiple choice assessment. They also have a premier partnership with Google Classroom, and that means that the grades and completion of tasks talk to each other. So teachers, this is something that our team is learning more about, but basically it looks like a more streamlined connection between Google Classroom and the Savvis Realize platform. And then finally, one of the platform highlights is My Perspectives Plus. The presenter described this as like your filing cabinet of supplemental materials. So there are some resources available to support the core and base materials that I will show you as well. All right, so let's dive in. On your open house flyer, you have these links as well. There's a student experience where you can log in and see what it looks like for students. There's also the teacher experience where you can see all of the teacher wrap and kind of some of the additional resources that don't show up in the student version. I want to make a note. I just realized that the online review login credentials for the student experience, this is a flyer that the publisher provided, there's an error on there. It has a space between Rio and Rancho. You don't want the space. So it's Rio, capital R, Rancho, capital R, no space, and then 9, 10, 11, or 12. So just note when you click on that flyer link, you'll want to treat it as though there's no space for the username when you log in. And I'm sorry, I don't have any control over that flyer to edit it for you, but those of you who are taking part in this session, that's how you can log in and see that. All right, so let's dive in. I am going to click over here to the Realize dashboard, and I am logged in right now as a teacher. I'm going to walk through and highlight some of the teacher pieces, and then I will give you a look at what you have available on the student platform as well. So you'll notice there's the 1, 2, and 3. You're going to focus your attention on the 1, which is where you have your programs. And because this is a demo account, you'll be able to see all grade levels. So 9, 10, 11, and 12. These are then considered the core program. My Perspectives Plus is 6 through 12, and it's that, like I mentioned, that filing cabinet of supplemental resources that you can peruse, but notice it is 6 through 12, so it's not a specific grade level, it'll reference it in the materials, but you're not going to see a separate one for each individual grade level. So let's dive into 9th grade. When I click on this tile, it will open up my 9th grade materials. And I want to highlight, I'm going to go ahead and scroll down in my table of contents to the Interactive Teachers Edition and the Interactive Student Edition. This is what mirrors what's in our print book. So I want you to really focus your attention on either one of these tiles for your review, because this is the core text, the core materials that our teachers and students would be using. So in the Teachers Edition, I will point out a few highlights for you. Notice here, you're going to end up having two different tabs that open. So this is the interactive edition. So it's going to open up Reader, Realize Reader, which is their interactive ebook. So I still have this other tab up here, and I can press exit to go back to my platform, my navigation platform here, table of contents. This Realize Reader tab, though, is where I'm going to be able to see the actual content in the book. Keep both tabs open so that you can navigate between the two. So this main piece here in gray, and then the images to the left, that's what mirrors the student book. So really you can review both experiences pretty much side by side. The teacher's wrap, if you will, and the specifics to the teacher's edition is this light gray over to the right-hand side. When you drop down your menus, you'll see some different pieces here. Again, this is similar to what you see in your print version, with the exception of there will be some links here that obviously you can't have a link in a print version. So I'm going to click on Whole Class Learning, and this is what my students would see here. I have the learning strategies, that's the goal setting that I'm going to take a look at. There's the comparing text. These are your anchor texts here for this specific unit, and in Whole Class Learning. And then you'll note that performance task. That's where I mentioned at the end of Whole Class Learning, you're practicing writing, in this case, in this unit, a nonfiction narrative. I know that the performance-based assessment will also be a nonfiction narrative. Over to the side, when you are looking at your teacher's edition, click on one of the texts, and you'll see the text here on the left in your teacher edition, your different notes here. I wanted to kind of point out, it's a little bit small here on my screen, so if you're perusing the materials on your own, you can enlarge and see that, but just note on the right-hand side, that's where you'll see some of those personalized for learning pieces here. So as you click through some of those differentiation, like here, personalized for learning, English language support. So that's some of the specific scaffolds and supports in the teacher wrap that I referenced earlier. All right, there is that selection audio. So you can see that, you can adjust the speed. It has that annotatable, that's not a word, you can annotate the text, and with different colors of highlighter, circling, underlining, making notes that show up in the notebook on the right-hand side. There are links to words, certain words have definitions, and then pronunciation, audio. And that's the ebook in a nutshell. So just navigation-wise, remember that we're in the reading right now, the Realize Reader component. I can use this top navigation bar to go back to, let's say, Whole Class Learning in this case. And then I can go and find additional text. So just pay attention. That's going to walk you through this bar at the top, will walk you through where you are and show you your kind of path, if you will, of how to kind of get back to different places in the unit. So that's the reader. I'm going to go back to the other tab, the Savvis Realize tab, where I have my dashboard and my table of contents. One other way you can easily look and see what's in a unit is to click on Unit Resources. And I can open up the unit. and see really quickly what are the different texts and what are the different components of this unit. So A Quilt of a Country, the immigrant contribution, American history. I can see that writing, that performance task. So this gives you a really easy way to walk through a unit and to click directly into certain texts without having to navigate the interactive ebook as well. So I know our middle school teachers like to navigate this way, so I'll share that with you. All right, another place here is to get PDFs if you wanted that view, which is kind of a pretend version of the print book. If you'd like to navigate using a PDF, you can also go to Tools, drop down, and open up a PDF. So just different ways that you can review with a focus on the core materials, the core selections in this program. All right, a couple of the other pieces that I was going to highlight for you is, let me go back to my table of contents here. And the assessment piece. This is where you can see the selection tests, the unit test, and then those beginning, middle, and end of year tests. So I encourage you to take a look at how those open up and function. This is part of the adopted materials, these assessments on here. And then the other piece here that I will highlight for you is the Hook and Inspire and the Collaboration Center. These were two pieces that were emphasized during our publisher presentation last week. The Hook and Inspire comes from Kelly Gallagher's work, so this is just kind of an additional bump of activities to engage students in the text. The Collaboration Center is specific to the small group learning and some strategies around collaboration, and so these are peer videos, and so take a look at those as well. That was something that they emphasized. Okay. So that's your dashboard in a nutshell. You have data, you can get a look at that. This is a demo account, so there's nothing in there per se, but you can at least get a sense of what this looks like. And again, you can see class results. They have a little test in here. You can just kind of see a very small example. You can see scores, progress, usage, so how much time did students spend on assignments. And again, that was a piece of the platform that was emphasized during that publisher presentation, was this data dashboard, if you will. All right, I'm going to pop back over to using my top navigation bar to go back to that main dashboard. And I wanted to point out my Perspectives Plus. This is not part of the core print materials, but this is an additional supplemental materials. There's a digital library, mostly classics, older pieces, and some additional support pieces that were referenced as scaffolds and such for students. So these are in addition to the main materials. One other piece that I'm sorry I forgot to mention when we were in the main book is that those independent selections. So if you recall, we have the unit structure, whole class learning, small group learning, and then independent learning. Those independent learning selections are only available in full length in the Realize platform, so in their interactive student edition. So just a point to consider as you're reviewing that those materials are intended to be digital for students to easily pick between. So to see those independent selections, again, it'll open up that Realize Reader view, and you can click on Independent Learning to take a look at the selections that students would get to choose from. There is guidance in the teacher wrap around each of these selections. So just kind of a point there that it's not just information here. Teachers do have a little bit of background on each of the selections and could help guide students to certain selections based on interest, based on the level of the text and the text complexity, etc. So that's the independent learning piece. All right. Again, thank you so much for joining us today. I appreciate your time during this really busy and hectic, exciting time for our students. If you could please complete feedback, our adoption team would love to hear what you are thinking as you peruse these materials. Again, focusing mostly on that ebook component and the main materials. But definitely complete a Google form. I've extended it to March 5th, so our team is not meeting again until March 10th. So March 5th is plenty of time for us to pull all of that information together and get that to the team. And if you have any questions, I'm going to see if there's anything in the chat. We don't have anything yet, but I know as you dig into the materials that questions bubble up, and I am here, would love to chat with you or email with you, schedule a phone call, a meet, whatever you need to make sense of these materials and to provide feedback. I am here to support you. Thank you again so much for being part of our adoption process and kind of an extension of our team on this work. And I look forward to hearing your feedback. And thank you so much. Have a wonderful rest of your day and week.